What is up, guys? Welcome into episode number 83 of the Loose Sports Talk podcast. I'm your host, Ethan Hannaford, and you will notice to my right that there is a new man on the screen that you may not have seen before. That is because he is the newest addition to the team here with the Loose Sports Talk podcast. He is Daniel Hinkamp. Daniel, a pleasure to have you joining us, making your Loose Sports Talk podcast debut.
Ethan, thank you so much for having me. This is a great opportunity to be here. I love to talk about sports, and to do it in this format I can't wait.
And for those of you that are wondering, well, why the change now? If you had the opportunity to watch or listen to episode number 82, you will have heard that Brandon Big Papi Gallegos not only is about to become a father here in the next few months, but he's also going to be stepping away from the podcast as just responsibilities with that and work pickup. He's going to be taking a break, and at some point we hope to have him back, but he is for the near future at least is going to be stepping back. And if you've been a long-time listener, you know his knowledge of the St. Louis Blues, his understanding of Blues hockey. Daniel is going to be stepping into that role. He is going to be becoming our primary Blues guy in the meantime. And we're super excited to have him joining the team here. Dylan, TJ, and myself could not be more thankful that he is hopping on with us. And without further ado, Daniel, why don't you go ahead and just tell the people a little bit about yourself? Well,
first off, Ethan, thank you so much for the kind words. And just a little bit about me. I just graduated from Lindenwood last year. I'm a producer at KMOX in St. Louis, and I have to give Ethan credit for getting me on there. And I'm also a broadcaster for Lindenwood Hockey on 89.1 KCLC.
There you go. That is what is up. Did you grow up in the area? I know you have a history with hockey. How did that get started?
Yeah, I grew up in the area. I'm from South County in St. Louis, and Oakville, I should say. Excuse me. Played youth hockey with the Merrimack Sharks and played hockey at Oakville High School. Always been a Blues fan. Went to my first game when I was about, I'd say 7 years old, and just fell in love from there.
What is it about hockey, about the Blues that I guess from a young age that captured you? What is it that you love so much about the sport?
Well, before I really understood what was going on, it was just how much fun it was to be there. The St. Louis crowd has always been awesome, especially at Enterprise Center. And the atmosphere is great. And just the team at the time, TJ Oshie was just starting out, and he really pulled in a lot of young fans, especially myself, just with all his skill and the flashiness. And even players like Andy McDonald, I remember watching him when I was younger. Most people might not remember him too much, but he was also great.
Well, yeah, maybe most people not our age, but definitely, we have all kinds of folks of all ages that consume the Loose Sports Talk podcast. So there's definitely some seasoned vets out there that definitely are extremely familiar. But yeah, no, we're super excited to have you on, and it's the perfect time to be joining with the Blues commentary, right? Because the season is now underway. We are still in the very early parts of the season, but you're starting to get a little bit of an idea. You're getting bits and pieces of what the identity of this team is going to be, what they are built around. And I think, to play a little bit of catch up, and I want to give you the opportunity to speak on this because we finally were able to get a little bit of an idea of what they were, right? Once we got into that final stretch of the 2024-25 season, Jim Montgomery finally got an extended opportunity to work with his team. You had Jimmy Snuggerud come up with the team. You got a little bit of a taste of Dalibor Dvorsky, the Cam Fowler trade. You had a lot of things that worked really well at the end of the 24-25 season for the Blues. And I think a lot of Blues fans throughout the offseason and going into the year have been waiting and ready to see that for an entire full 82. Would you agree?
Yes, I would fully agree, especially with the sour taste that Game 7 left in a lot of St. Louis fans' mouths, being up 2 goals and just losing it in that fashion when you almost thought for sure that they were doing the unthinkable and moving on after being the President's Trophy winners. But I can't wait for us to really get into the deep parts of the season. But like you said, we're still kind of figuring out the identity that this Blues team has. It's been a little shaky at home so far, but they kind of ride the ship this previous Saturday against Dallas, but we'll see how it goes further down the line.
I'm assuming at this point, if you're watching here, whether it be whether you're watching on YouTube, where all of our content on STL Sports Central is presented by DraftKings, the crown is yours, or if you are listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, you have seen the title, The Hot and Cold Blues. Katy Perry wrote a song along the lines of that a few years back, probably around the time that Andy McDonald was playing for the St. Louis Blues. And it is quite literally, there have been games where this team has looked really sharp. There have been games when this team has looked really poor, and it hasn't been the style in which we were expecting, specifically the home opener against the Minnesota Wild and their game last Wednesday against the Chicago Blackhawks. Before we jump into the Blues' latest win against the Dallas Stars at the time that we are recording, we're recording on Tuesday night here. Before we get into that a little bit, I want to look and observe a little bit as to some of the negatives that we have seen to start off the year. I have to be careful not to jump on the concerned train, Daniel. If you haven't already, you will learn that baseball is my go-to. It is my number one. And when you're playing a full 162, quite often you have to say, patient, slow down. It's slightly different in hockey, being that there is half the amount of games, but simultaneously, when you take into consideration the lack of time that these teams get to have together on the ice leading up to the start of the regular season, as well as several other things, just getting into the flow of the year, right? There are going to be bumps in the road. The results of those bumps have been 2 ugly losses in your first 6-7 games. What has been some of the reasonings in your eyes for some of those bumps? What has gone wrong for St. Louis through these first handful of games?
So I'm going to start off with the home opener against Minnesota. Just from the get-go, once the puck dropped, the team just seemed like they came out a little flat, didn't have as much energy, and you need that against the Wild, especially after Kaprizov signed that huge contract, and there's all that buzz around that. And I also noticed just a little bit of, and I kind of noticed this against the game against Chicago too, when they lost 8-3. Just a lot of players just seem like they're playing with a lack of confidence. Like they don't know if the move that the pass that they're making is the right one, if they should be shooting, if they're in the right spot. It just seems like a lot of players are second guessing themselves so far, And I feel like once they get that confidence down, then things will be a lot smoother. So as we go on.
How much of that confidence in your eyes do you think has to do with perhaps some of that lack of chemistry at times, as well as the mix of quite a few youngsters on this team?
Yeah, the chemistry is something that's going to take time to develop when you have these new players, especially like Logan Mailloux, Pius Suter, Nick Bjugstad. Well, Pius Suter's fit in really well, but it takes so much time. And that Northwestern Canada road trip, that's huge for team chemistry and bonding with the guys while you're out of town, spending all that time together. And you thought that they would come back from that and really kind of put a thumping on Chicago. Well, we kind of overestimated that. Now they turned things around when they faced Dallas that past Saturday, but there's still so many things that they need to work on. And from the rookies' perspective, like Jimmy Snuggerud, I have no complaints. He's having a great start to the season, and he's one that I will say looks like he's playing with a lot of confidence. Even though when he got dropped to the third line a few games ago, it still looked like he was comfortable there, wasn't going to take it to heart, because you need 4 solid lines to play good hockey. It's not just about the first and the second line. It's really just lines.
So, we're going to talk about Jimmy Snuggerud here in a little bit, but what I first want to talk about prior to that is the line changes. We've seen Jim Montgomery, I think perhaps maybe a little bit to the surprise of some people out there, we've seen Jim Montgomery mix up these lines quite a bit here to start off the year. On Tuesday night, the line's looking like so. Dylan Holloway, Robert Thomas, and Jake Neighbours on the first line, followed by Pavel Buchnevich, Pius Suter, and Jimmy Snuggerud on the second line. Mathieu Joseph, Brayden Schenn, and Jordan Kyrou on the third line. And then Texier, Bjugstad, and Nathan Walker on line number 4. So there's a couple of different things to break down here. But when you look at Tuesday night's lines specifically, and you take into consideration what you have seen from different guys to start off the year, is there anything that stands out to you?
The first thing that definitely stands out to me is seeing Jordan Kyrou on the third line. But I understand it. Coach Montgomery said in his press conference before the Dallas game, he made a bit of a funny blender noise when he was talking about shaking the lines up. And Jordan Kyrou got his first goal of the season on that third line, made a great play in the neutral zone, pulled up, surveyed, looked for some options, eventually got the puck back and right in the slot, fired a great shot under the glove and above the left pad of Jake Ottinger. So I think dropping Kyrou down there gave him a little bit more fire. We also saw him back checking really well, getting into the defensive zone a lot quicker than we've seen in the past. So while some Blues fans might view Kyrou being moved down like that as a negative because he's had a little bit of a slower start, I think it's a huge positive for his gameplay.
And I guess the natural thought, right, is last year we saw Holloway, Schenn, and Kyrou on that line together. And I mean, I fall victim to this as well, I guess, is that the thought is okay, they're going to be together for a full 82, and it's going to be go time. We're going to see these two really gel together. And it just hadn't been the case through the first couple of games. Dylan Holloway's been quiet as well. But sometimes, right, it takes mixing things up. It takes keeping things fresh. It takes, trying to find that chemistry with different guys to get things gelling. And it still seems like we're early enough in the year to where that's what Jim Montgomery's trying to do.
Yeah, he's certainly just trying to mix things up. And like you said, early in the year, just getting a feel for everything, seeing where each player fits the best. Maybe Jordan Kyrou doesn't fit the best this season with Brayden Schenn, with Brayden Schenn, Dylan Holloway, like he did last season. Maybe he's going to be a better player with Brayden Schenn and Mathieu Joseph, and maybe just shaking those lines up will prove the right decision from Jim Montgomery. And also on the defensive side, just giving Logan Mailloux just a little bit of a break, maybe just to get some of the noise out of his head. He figure his game out a little bit, slotting Matthew Kessel in there, who Blues fans have been asking for. And Mailloux's a different topic. I'm sure we'll get into that. But just a lot of changes. But I think changes at this point in the season are a good thing. Now, if we're passing, let's say, New Year's Day, and we're still not sure who's on what line and who fits where, then I think that's when we have cause for concern there.
So let's go ahead and let's take a walk through. And I know for you folks that watched on Tuesday night the game against the Kings, you're going to be thinking, well, why aren't we breaking them down the most recent? Because we're recording right now on Tuesday night. So we're going to talk about specifically some of the bright spots that we saw against a really good Dallas Stars team on Saturday night. The Blues won that game 3-1 after a scoreless first. You mentioned the Kyrou goal that was fed by Brayden Schenn. Finally, Kyrou gets his first goal of the season. Just a couple of minutes into the second, Jimmy Snuggerud would double the lead 10 minutes later on a breakaway rebound. And then early in the third, superstar Mikko Rantanen would get Dallas on the board. But the Blues would, ding, 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 they would hold out for the remainder of the game, weather that storm on the 6-on-5 late, and they even tacked on an empty netter courtesy of Pius Suter. Really pretty, really excellent efforted empty netter, I may add. Before we get into any of the talking points, the 6-on-5, that was one of the glaring issues last year. It is why the Blues did not advance to round number 2. What have you seen from the 6-on-5 early in the year? Small sample size. Have you liked what you've seen so far? What have you taken from it?
Yeah, the small sample size, there's not as much to really judge it so far as say 30 games into the season, but I've liked it so far. It's definitely been a turnaround from last year. I still remember Game 7. I'm sitting there watching Pavel Buchnevich not shoot that puck out of the zone, which ultimately you could say that led to the final result. You could say it couldn't. You never know because it didn't happen. But especially that effort from Pius Suter against Dallas, falling down on the backhand, just getting that puck down the ice. that's what I'm seeing is effort, more effort, really trying to get the puck out of your zone, break up the passes. Don't let them get as many good looks as they can. Don't try to sit there and just, I'm going to use a little bit of a soccer term here, and park the bus and just only look for defense. If there's a chance to get the puck out of the zone, get it out of the zone. If you have a chance to, even if you're in your own zone, if you see that net wide open, you have a chance to fire it down and you think you can make it, I'm all for taking that shot.
Jimmy Snuggerud mentioned he having the second goal of the night on Saturday, and it's been a notable start to the year for him now. 3 goals, 4 points up to this point as we are recording. I think people are really excited with what they've seen from him. I'm going to, if I don't preface this, I'm going to say it every freaking time that I bring a point up. Everything is a small sample size at this point. All right, people? So I'm going to say that now so that I don't have to continue saying that. I'm probably going to still say it either way. But Jimmy Snuggerud, what we have seen now through several games, boy, it doesn't look now. Who knows? It's a long season, and perhaps we get to the point midway through where we get through a stretch, and Jimmy Snuggerud's had a couple where he really looks like a rookie. That could very well happen. However, we haven't really seen it yet this year. What have you liked about Jimmy Snuggerud's game? What has impressed you? I know you have been out at Enterprise Center several times, and you're going to have the accessibility through CamoX to be at the arena a lot this year. So you're going to be able to provide us with first-person point of view in a lot of those things. What have you liked about what you have seen in his game at the start of his full first season in the NHL?
His mentality as a player, his goal scoring ability, it's obvious, but he's got a great shoot first mentality, which is something that I really like to see. If the shot's there, he's going to take it. He's not going to try to force a pass, but he's also not going to try and force those shots through when he's got a defender sitting right in front of him. The shot's obviously going to get blocked, and he's not afraid to get into those dirty areas. Something I've noticed early in this season, like his goal against Dallas, was that puck's just sitting in the crease and he just gives it a shove into the back of the net, parked right in front. Well, not necessarily, he's not parked right in front, but he's crashing the net, not afraid to get to the front. And that net front presence is huge, even though it wasn't really what happened on that play. But his lack of fear with the puck and his composure with the puck. He's not afraid to take a hit in the corner if it's going to make a play. And he's not, if a guy's crashing in on him, he doesn't get frazzled. He still looks calm. And something I also noticed, this was before the season started, when I just happened to scamper over to Centene and see them practicing, just his wicked wrist shot. It's so quiet. It's so fast. And if the goalie doesn't see it, he's not going to know that shot's coming through. So I think he's a huge candidate for the Calder this year. His main competition is up in Montreal, probably with Ivan Demidov, but he's got a shot for it. And so far, I'm really, really happy with what I've seen from Jimmy Snuggerud.
Well, you brought up the next point is the Calder Watch, and for those that don't know, it is the Rookie of the Year award in the National Hockey League. I think that hearing that for people is probably a little bit eye-opening, because I think that I'm trying to recall prior to Jimmy Snuggerud, help me out here, Daniel, the last real notable prospect that St. Louis had that really turned into something legitimate here in St. Louis. Help me out here. What would it have been? Jaden Schwartz? Is that the last one?
I would say maybe Jaden Schwartz or Alex Pietrangelo, even, because of his contributions before he left for Vegas.
But it's been that long ago, though.
It's been that long.
It's been that long.
And the last time...
Go ahead.
I believe the last time the Blues had a Calder winner was 2003 and Barrett Jackman. I could be wrong. I'm going to check that real quick.
Well, while you are, I can blabber for a second. It's what I do best. I think that's pretty telling as to where this team is at right now. I tell you what, it is so difficult to consistently be successful with going so long without having a top 10 pick. And the Blues did it for such a long time without being able to develop that superstar. Now, they had guys like Vladimir Tarasenko, and which was by far the biggest superstar that they had here, and they were able to acquire some guys like Ryan O'Reilly and others, but they never had the number one guy or the top three guy, and those guys are rare to come by. But now, and Jimmy Snuggerud wasn't a top 10 pick either. It was just good drafting and developing for St. Louis. There is a guy waiting in the ranks in Dalibor Dvorsky that could be that stud someday, but we don't know yet. It just goes to show how important it is to be able to bring in star power like this, to be able to develop star power, and it shows how far it can go. Maybe I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself because it has been so little we have seen from Jimmy Snuggerud, but to me, it is telling that there hasn't been, from last year to now, any sort of bumps in the road. The lights are not too bright. And I have to imagine that him having the opportunity to play against the President's Trophy winners in the Stanley Cup playoffs did something for him. And it probably made the start of this year feel a little bit more, okay, it's go time. Though the lights have worn off. Let's get to it. Would you agree? Would you back that?
Oh, yeah. Well, 100%. What's going to get your feet wet more in the best hockey league in the world than playing the defending President's Trophy, like President's Trophy winners, not champions. I guess winners would be the correct term there. But he looked comfortable, and that's the thing that I can't stress enough. He didn't look nervous. He didn't look like he felt like he didn't belong there. He looked like, this is just another game. It's not like we're going into one of the hardest playoff atmospheres in the league to play in. It's just another game. I'm going out there to play hockey, and this is what I'm here for. And also, to follow up on that point earlier, 2003 Bear Jackman did win the Calder.
Thank you for the confirmation on that. The people appreciate that. Let's go ahead and before we move on to a couple more negatives, I want to focus on one of the newer additions to this team via free agency, and that's Pius Suter. You mentioned him earlier. You mentioned the impressive empty net goal in the win on Saturday against the Dallas Stars. Pius Suter on the year in 2 goals and an assist up to the point that we're recording, +3 on the ice. What has his addition added to this team that you've seen in the early going?
First off, he was a 20-goal scorer last year in Vancouver, so that's huge. But the thing that strikes me the most is his two-way play and how he uses his strengths to his advantage. He's not the fastest player out there by any means. He's not the strongest player out there by any means. But he has one of the strongest hockey IQs that personally I've seen. He sees the ice so well. It's kind of that Swiss Army knife, which is a funny term for him because he actually is Swiss. But just his hockey IQ it's hard to match, and it's hard to beat the smarts that he has on the ice.
Can we coin that, the Swiss Army knife, specifically for him because he is Swiss? Can we do that right now?
I think we should.
If that picks up in St. Louis, know that on October 21st, 2025, it was said right here on the Loose Sports Talk podcast, which you can get on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or if you're watching on YouTube on STL Sports Central. We love being a partner with STL Sports Central. We're super appreciative that they allow us to use this platform. We're going to go ahead and take a quick pause, and then we're going to get into a couple of more negatives. We dove into some goods. We dove into some bads early in the episode, but I think some people are concerned about a couple of things that they've seen in some of these uglier games early in the year, specifically some of the poor showings from both the defense, the goaltending, and even specifically Logan Mailloux, someone that we brought up in episode number 82. So don't go anywhere. Quick pause. More right here on the Loose Sports Talk podcast when we return. Welcome back to the Loose Sports Talk podcast. I'm Ethan Hannaford. He is Daniel Hinkamp, the newest addition to our family, our crew here with the Loose Sports Talk podcast. And we're going to go ahead and continue to dive into this full Blues episode. I know for all you Cardinals people that are out there, Cardinals baseball will be returning content-wise. It's been a few episodes. Listen, I was so knee-deep in baseball in St. Louis this year, in my coverage of it, that I just needed a breather once we got through the season. Which is kind of sad, because I remember the days when the end of the year was the time when you were waiting all year for it because it was postseason time and you were in the run for a World Series every year. Well, we know that that's changed the last couple of years, and I was looking forward to the end of the year for a different reason this year, sadly. But once we get through the World Series, which is set to begin later this week, there's going to be more content that's going to be coming out, because there's going to be more news as to the direction in which the Cardinals are going to be heading. We still need to recap the 2024 season, some of our takeaways from it. That is going to be coming. But for now, we're going to stick with the Blues. We're going to stick with some of the things that we have seen from the Blues, and specifically diving into some of the negatives, Daniel, over the last couple of games. I'm going to take a look here for a moment at the goaltender numbers through the first 6. Jordan Binnington, 2-1 with a 2.81 goals against average. The save percentage just over 80% at 82%. Joel Hofer in his 2 starts, 1-1 with a 5.01 goals against average, and the save percent almost identical to Benner's at 8.24. Listen, I guess more so for Benner, the majority of what you have seen from him has been good. It was the Minnesota start that dragged him down. You saw one really good start from Joel Hofer, and you saw one that was really bad. And part of that was him. He had a couple of silly decisions during the game against the Blackhawks. But I think that sometimes people look at the final lines and all of a sudden assume that the majority of that is on goaltending. And there are nights, most definitely, Daniel, you played the game, you know where it is, but there's also nights where it is far from that. And I think that that's closer to what we have seen early in the season in St. Louis than solely this being poor goaltending play. Would you agree?
Yes, 100%. And your goalies aren't going to be on 100% of the games they play. No goalie's going to go out and win 41 games a season, and then the backup's going to go in and win 35. That's just – it would be phenomenal if that was a regular occurrence, but that just doesn't really happen. And Joel Hofer, that game against Chicago, I think that first goal, when he was picking the puck up behind the net and he fed it right out in front, just a bad pass, and the Blackhawks just scored right into an empty net. I think that's what got him. He's a young goalie. He's still trying to get that full. A goalie is one of the hardest positions to play in sports, if you ask me. An NHL goalie, up there with a catcher in the MLB. I'd even throw a pitcher in there, but and a few others. But since we're talking about hockey, I'll stick with that. I think it's the hardest position to play in hockey, especially with how athletic you have to be. And as a young goaltender, getting in your head is going to be so easy, especially when you let in one like that. It's on you. You know it. It's a mistake, but how do you grow and how do you bounce back from that? And I think the next start we see from Joel Hofer, he's going to be spot on. And Jordan Binnington, he came into that 8-3 Chicago loss. He only let in 1 goal and he looked great. And I saw some people wanting to group him into just the bad play with Joel Hofer that night. No, he played really well. But Hofer went back out for the third because I keep saying Jordan Montgomery because I'm thinking about baseball and the J. Jim Montgomery, he said in his press conference, your goalies aren't going to post game. Your goalies aren't going to be on every single night, and sometimes you have to go out and win a game 5-4, and that's just what you have to do. But I don't think there's the cause for concern that some people may think. I'm kind of there with you that a goalie can win and lose you the game, but there's certain instances too where the goalies just get hung out to dry. Like if you're constantly giving up odd man rushes, a goalie can only move back and forth so many times before the net's just left wide open. And a goalie can only face so many shots before he gets worn down if you're not blocking shots, if you're allowing the other team to generate multiple scoring chances like that. But I'm confident. I still think we definitely have one of the best tandems in the league. I can't think of many other teams that have a tandem that you can put either one in goal and think, yeah, we're going to go out and win tonight. Now, it's easier said than done. The whole team has to show up, and your goalie's going to have an off night. But to circle back, there's no cause for concern if you're asking me.
So we've looked at the goaltenders. Now let's look at the defense as a whole. Currently, St. Louis is tied for 25th in the NHL in goals allowed per game with 3.6 allowed. That there have been some areas of concern with certain pieces, as far as whether it be discipline, whether it be just decision making on the ice. Obviously Logan Mailloux is the notable one, but there are other pieces as well. People continue to harp on Justin Falk as they have for the last 2 years. Overall, you look at the defense's play in these games. Where is their level of responsibility in this? Is there a part of, for example, against Minnesota, the big issue being the lack of net front presence on both sides of the puck, but the goals were allowed, a couple of them, because there was no one in front or protecting Binner. Was it a similar case for Chicago? Are you able to kind of pinpoint what has gone wrong for the defense in those couple of games?
It's hard because there were two different instances in the Minnesota and Chicago game. In the Chicago game, it just seemed like everybody was asleep or tired. I'm not sure what it was, but the net front presence thing was still very much a factor. Players were able to drive the net way too easily. They were able to park themselves right in front of the net, and there were so many chances where if the puck doesn't get deflected, if a bounce doesn't go the right way for the Blues, that there's so many times that there's an open player. In the Blackhawks game, we saw it a lot, just waiting back door for a tap in, and it's 5-on-5. That shouldn't be happening, and you just need to be more defensively sound as a whole. And now there's also times where the breakout's not smooth, and you have a choppy breakout, and you turn the puck over, and a rush comes right back in. But Logan Mailloux and Justin Falk, I would say, have been the two biggest culprits. And as much as fans want to, you have to give Mailloux a little more grace than you're going to give Justin Falk because of all the experience Falk has and the fact that Mailloux's only played 12 NHL games. He's still – go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, you finish up.
He's still learning – he's still learning the kind of player he wants to be. He's shown to be offensive-minded, a little less on the defensive side, but he's got to figure it out, and he needs time to do that. And 12 games isn't long enough unless you're, I don't know, Wayne Gretzky.
Unless you're Jimmy Snuggerud, I guess.
Yeah, Jimmy Snuggerud. There you go. He's played about 12 games too.
So let's talk about Logan Mailloux. One of the notable changes between Wednesday's game against Chicago and Saturday's game against Dallas was the defensive third line pairings. We saw Matthew Kessel make his seasonal debut in place of one of the newest Blues, Logan Mailloux. I know Jim Montgomery had some comments on that later in the postgame. I'll share some of those here in just a moment. Matthew Kessel started on the third line, defensive pairings as well on Tuesday night. When you look at what you've seen from Logan Mailloux so far, you mentioned grace being a huge reason for importance for it. Especially for defensemen, it's going to take time for them to develop. How much of do you think the impatience, perhaps, that we're seeing from Blues fans has to do with what we're seeing from Zach Bolduc in Montreal?
I think about 95 to 98% of it is because of what Zach Bolduc is doing in Montreal. But what fans don't realize is part of the reason they got rid of Bolduc is because they can afford to. They have enough depth at the forward position. Justin Falk he's in the back end of his career. You don't know when Cam Fowler is going to start to wind down. So Logan Mailloux isn't the short term. He's not going to give you the short term results that Zach Bolduc's going to give you. He's going to need to develop, and the Blues picked him up because they saw down the road that he's going to be a great defender. I don't know if it's offensive, defensive, both ways, but he just needs time, and he needs that time to develop. But you can't compare him to Zachary Bolduc, one, because they play two different positions, 2, because Bolduc's already had enough time in the NHL, and 3, because Bolduc had 19 goals last year. We knew he was going to be a 20-goal scorer this year. Nobody said that Logan Mailloux was going to come in, score 20 goals, and be plus 17.
A quote here from Jim Montgomery following the loss last Wednesday night regarding Mailloux. Said, "We're thinking the long game with Logan Mailloux. Sometimes you need a reset and you go up in the press box and watch a game. We're going to work with him. We have a plan. When he gets back in the lineup, I don't ever expect him to come back out." So first off, that is a load of confidence that you are hearing right there from Jim Montgomery regarding what he believes that Logan Mailloux can be. What kind of, give me a little bit of perspective here. I know that you haven't sat on an NHL bench. You haven't, you have been in an NHL press box, but you haven't, as a healthy scratch, sat in an NHL press box. What kind of perspective can you give as to what that could do for a young player like him?
I think it just gives him time to see the game from far away. Just watch how the Blues are playing and see if he can see that kind of identity that they want him to play with. And he can also see what they're trying to do on the back end, if they're trying to be a little smoother on the breakout. And it also just gives him time to be like, okay, I got those first few games under my belt. Now I'm going to take a breather. I'm going to reset. I'm going to look at some film. I'm going to look at some tape and see where I messed up. Look at where I can do, look at what I can do better and where I can improve my game. And then once I get my next opportunity, I'm going to take it and run with it.
That's interesting. You talked a little bit about the identity of it. You talked a little bit about the X's and O's of it. The game, I think it's interesting. Brandon used to talk a lot about one of the reasons that Jimmy Snuggerud was ready when he was to join the club was because of his time in the NCAA and how much that prepared him for the Blues. Logan Mailloux didn't have that. So he is still actively adjusting to this level of the game. There is a pace to it. There's a physicality to it that he is adjusting to still. And while the physicality you can't necessarily adjust to from the press box, I think the speed of it and understanding the decision-making and being able to actively watch what you would be doing in that scenario can be beneficial. Would you agree?
Yeah, for sure. And that's something we saw. The NCAA thing, for me, I think college hockey is the closest thing that any of these players in junior or people that want to move into professional hockey, whether it's the NHL, if they get that opportunity, or even overseas, if that's the opportunity that they get. I think NCAA is the best way to go. It's the fastest pace now. It's the most physical. It has the most skill. And a great comparison would be the Connor Bedard and Macklin Celebrini comparison. Connor Bedard came into the league and he had all this hype around him. Like, oh, Connor Bedard's going to be the next Connor McDavid. He's going to come to this league. He's going to score 35 goals in his first season. And he didn't do that. And he come from the Western Hockey League, which is a major junior league up in Canada. Macklin Celebrini didn't put up 45 goals or whatever in his first season, but he looked more comfortable. He looked more like he was ready. He could keep up with the game. He was a lot stronger and more ready for the physical game. And that, I think, you have to give a lot of credit to him playing at Boston University and facing NCAA opponents versus players that could be 16 years old and are smaller and weaker than him.
It's going to take time. It's going to take patience. But let me ask you this. How long are you willing to give in your mind? Is there a clock? Is there an internal clock that you have with Logan Mailloux that's saying this is the time where I start to get concerned? Or is it even too soon to be doing that?
I don't think there's an internal clock yet. I think it's a little too soon to be doing that.
I'm talking about for you personally.
Okay. No, there's no internal clock for me yet. I think personally, he just needs more time. I give him for sure. I give him this year and I give him next year for sure before I start that clock for myself. But And that's if he's playing NHL games. If he's getting games at the NHL level, say if he's playing at least 35 games, that's when maybe my clock will start in 2 years from now. But if he's only down in the AHL and he's not seeing NHL ice much, I'd say 3 years from now is what I'd give him.
Well,
so it just depends on where he goes.
And we don't know for sure what will happen, but what it sounds like is that there is high confidence. This is a guy they said during training camp that he was NHL ready. So they obviously view him some sort of way, right? I mean, they have made that clear. I mean, I just read the comment. Once he is back on the ice, they don't think he's ever going to leave. So Jim Montgomery has high regard for who Logan Mailloux is and what they think he can be. Like you said, it's just going to take time. Any final thoughts here, Daniel, before we wrap?
You got to give the team time. Just like we've been harping on this whole podcast. And back to the Katy Perry comment, you're hot and you're cold. And the next line in that song is your yes and your no. There's yeses of the season so far, and there's nos. But we're not going to be really able to get into the thick of it until about 20 games into the season when we realize, okay, this is what this Blues team is. This is the identity that they want to establish. This is how they want to play. I think we just need to give them a little more time, just get settled into this new season, get the chemistry built up with some of these new guys. And after that, I think that's when we're going to see this team. It could be even less than that. It could be significantly less than that. Well, maybe not significantly because we're already going to start creeping up on that here kind of soon. But once we get to that point, I think we're going to see the team that everybody expected to come out to start this year.
There you have it. You heard it right there from Daniel Hinkamp, the newest member of the Loose Sports Talk podcast. Super excited to have him joining us here on the platform. Once again, be sure to like and subscribe below here on STL Sports Central if you have not already. We would greatly appreciate it if you did so. And then be sure to follow us on our socials at Loose Sports Talk _ on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. This is the spot to find all of the latest up-to-date content on St. Louis sports, Blues, Cardinals. We're even throwing in now some Mizzou Tigers here since the start of the season. TJ and Dylan and Brandon also. We're having a blast with that. Plenty of content. And then we got college basketball that is not far away either. And we are starting to get some things in the works for that as well. So we appreciate you all, as always, joining us right here on the Loose Sports Talk podcast, episode 83. That's a wrap.